When Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner aren't discussed together, the first thing that comes to mind is probably not a couple. But if you look closely enough, you'll see that they are. Old co-star Kevin Costner shocked onlookers by stepping forward to deliver a eulogy at the funeral for American singer, actress, and legendary icon Whitney Houston. Despite the widespread speculation over their sexually suggestive relationship, Costner chose to talk openly and honestly about her life and the positive influence she had on him and those around her. The Bodyguard, the finest romantic drama of 1992, which featured Costner and Whitney starring opposite each other for the first time, is the first partnership that springs to mind when they are mentioned together with Whitney. The fact that they were never meant to work together only added to the beauty and value of their partnership. Costner, who was not well known at the time, came upon the screenplay after it had been rejected 67 times with Diana Ross and Steve McQueen in mind. But when The Tide Turned and Dance with Wolves became a smash hit, Costner was heavily involved in The Bodyguard and helped get it into production. In exchange for his work, he had one stipulation. The iconic pop artist of the 1990s, Whitney Houston, was someone he aspired to work with. This casting had a lot of problems. The primary one is that she was opposed to doing it. Whitney wasn't interested in starting off on the same level as the part Costner offered her because she was already doing well in her singing career and wanted to explore other areas. She expressed her concern of being pursued before being given the chance to do the job in an interview, where she said this. Costner personally called her to beg her to act alongside him, and she finally agreed after feeling inadequate and terrified she would make a fool of herself. Nevertheless, further obstacles persisted. As a debut acting role, Houston had the role of the Bodyguard. It was a struggle for her to star in such a high-profile picture so quickly, especially since she had never done it before, alongside an esteemed actor. The fact that she was black was another unspoken worry. There may not be as much racism as there once was, but if Houston were to portray the role, many would still look askance. Costner, on the other hand, had complete faith in her abilities and was there to support her throughout the process. The studio insisted that she pass a screen test before they would cast her, and Costner had no choice but to accept. This was the first major challenge that Whitney faced. Years later, at her burial, Costner gave a lengthy eulogy in which he recalled the exam day in great detail. He described how his heart broke seeing the world's biggest pop star, who was feeling so insignificant in the trailer, questioning her own abilities. He went on to say that no matter how many times he tried to soothe her, she still seemed to find fault with her every move. Then Costner revealed that he had an overwhelming desire to assure her he would fix the audition when he was younger. He said he didn't care about the results of the test, that she might trip and start speaking in tongues, and that he would figure out a way to portray it as a remarkable acting decision so that more would come. It would have been unfair to everyone concerned, including Houston herself, if he had done that, but he had restrained himself after thinking about how fortunate we were to have her. And all he could do was attempt to soothe her to the best of his ability. Houston had requested him to give her a few minutes alone before she came out, and Costner said later that she had changed into heavier makeup in the 20 minutes he had left her alone, leading him to believe she did not look good enough, so they had to stop the test 4 minutes in. She felt exposed and anxious since the heavy makeup had melted beneath the intense lights. She whispered an explanation about wanting to appear her best when he questioned her about it. And that's when Costner saw her for what she really was. A driven, ambitious woman who sacrificed everything for her reputation and fortune. In the end, The Bodyguard was a huge hit, selling over 500 million copies around the world. According to Costner, Houston had been the one responsible for the magic. He went on to remark, "Whitney, if you could hear me now, I would tell you you weren't just good enough," in his eulogy, expanding on this idea and calling out to her specifically. "Thank you so much. Without a band, you managed to sing the entire freaking song. You gave the image its character. Countless leading men could have stepped into my shoes. That position may have been filled by many men. But I think you, Whitney, were the only one who could have portrayed Rachel Marron back then. Whitney Houston's rendition of Will Always Love You stands out to most fans as a particularly memorable and iconic part of The Bodyguard. It wasn't even in the movie script until Houston was cast, as Kevin Costner said. According to him, the song, What Comes of a Broken Heart, was really the original track. With Whitney's departure, everyone now has a shattered heart, thus it seemed like a better fit. Along with their shared Baptist upbringing, Houston and Costner also discussed their respective family histories. During his eulogy, Costner recalled how they frequently shared anecdotes about their time spent in church, a shared experience that brought them closer together and brought a smile to their faces. He reminisced about his childhood in church and the many mischiefs he and his pals got up to, such as whispering notes and chatting during sermons and running out to the kitchen after communion to pretend to drink whiskey while chatting with fictitious friends. According to him, Houston thought these stories were funny, particularly the one about how his father would continually take him away when he was a kid. After Houston's death on February 12th, Costner took to social media to make a personal statement. "She was my one true love." He went on to appear on CNN to discuss this statement in further detail, mentioning that he had written multiple letters to the actress. He expressed his deep worry and desire to assist Houston in any way he could after learning about her struggles with addiction. He recounted how, despite his aversion to writing, he sent multiple letters to Houston on multiple occasions in the hopes that she would know he was there and that he might intervene when his loved one was going through a tough time. Insist that she get assistance or do anything that could alleviate her pain, even little. As Costner admitted, neither the recipients nor anybody else ever responded to or even looked at these messages. Thus, their ultimate destiny is a mystery. He spoke at length about his love for her during his eulogy, but he focused mostly on how painful it was for him to witness her constant self-doubt, her inability to accept her value and competence despite her apparent strengths. To him, she embodied an unparalleled phenomenon, a feeling, an iconic moment, and an icon that could never be repeated. Because they were uniquely hers, even her tiniest performances became exclusive. If you want professional singers, including your own colleagues, to refuse to sing that little country tune, as Costner remarked at her funeral, raise the standards so high. In his opinion, what's the use? Only little girls who aspire to be like Whitney Houston keep singing her songs. Above all else, he wished they would realize that Whitney would have wished for them to have faith in themselves. Towards the conclusion of his speech, Costner portrayed Houston as the celestial woman who is leaving God in awe of his own creation. He broke down in tears as he spoke about her, bid her farewell, and encouraged her to have faith in herself as she continued to sing before the Heavenly Father accompanied by his celestial guard. In his last words, he assured her, "Don't you worry." They were a confession that was choked with emotion, but ultimately comforting. "You'll do just fine." Given the chance, what would you say to Whitney as your parting gift? Let us know in the space provided. I pray that her spirit finds eternal peace and soars with the angels.